The announcement came on an otherwise ordinary Tuesday morning. News anchors interrupted regular programming with a headline that stunned the nation. All college tuition and fees in the United States are now free, effective immediately. No asterisks, no fine print. From community colleges to Ivy League universities, every degree program now carried a price tag of $0. At first, many assumed it was a hoax. Parents refreshed news sites, searching for the inevitable correction. But the confirmation spread fast through every channel: radio, television, and official government statement. The president appeared on a live broadcast to repeat the words everyone struggled to believe. Higher education, from 2-year certificates to doctoral programs, is now a public right, fully funded. Within hours, campuses across the country erupted in celebration. Students poured from classrooms, cheering and hugging strangers. High school seniors who had feared decades of debt broke down in tears. Adults who had abandoned dreams of finishing a degree began calling admissions offices, their voices shaking as they asked the same question: is it really free? Financial markets shivered at the news. Stocks of private loan companies tumbled. University administrators held emergency meetings to understand what government funded meant for budgets and staff. Professors, once overworked and underpaid, wondered whether the sudden influx of students would double or triple class sizes. Families felt an immediate lift. Parents who had saved for decades to cover tuition saw a lifetime of careful planning suddenly redirected. Conversations at dinner tables shifted from "how will we pay" to "what do you really want to study?" Children sensed the change. Dreams of medicine, engineering, and art no longer seemed chained to family income, but celebration carried a shadow of worry. Economists debated the cost. The federal government promised funding through a new national education tax, but skeptics asked whether the system could sustain the surge of new students. State universities braced for a wave of applicants that might overwhelm dorms, libraries, and lecture halls. Meanwhile, community colleges and trade schools anticipated a renaissance, with money no longer a barrier. Adults in mid-career planned to learn new skills: nursing, coding, renewable energy technology. Towns that had watched young people flee for distant campuses imagined a revival as local schools became centers of opportunity. As evening settled on that historic day, one thing was clear: the meaning of higher education in America had changed overnight. The question was no longer if someone could afford to learn, but how a nation would adapt when every citizen suddenly held the key to a college classroom. Weeks passed and the first wave of consequences rolled across the nation like an unexpected tide. Enrollment offices overflowed with applications. Community colleges that once struggled to fill seats suddenly faced waiting lists stretching for months. Prestigious universities, long known for selective admissions, debated whether to expand class sizes or raise academic standards to manage the surge. The job market felt the tremor. Adults in their 30s and 40s, people who had once believed higher education was out of reach, left 9-to-5 jobs to chase long-delayed degrees. Employers scrambled to fill roles as workers requested sabbaticals or flexible schedules to return to school. Industries that depended on low-wage labor, from retail to food service, found themselves short-staffed. Some companies began offering their own training programs and salary bumps to retain talent. Local economies shifted in surprising ways. College towns thrived as rental markets exploded and small businesses catered to swelling student populations. Construction crews worked overtime to build new dormitories and classrooms. On the flip side, big cities that had drawn young professionals for immediate employment saw a temporary slowdown as more people delayed entering the workforce to pursue advanced education. Culturally, a quiet revolution unfolded. Conversations that once centered on the burden of student loans gave way to talk of passion and purpose. A mother of 2 enrolled in environmental science because she wanted to fight climate change. A retired factory worker studied philosophy simply because he finally. Education became less about earning potential and more about personal growth. But the transformation was not without friction. Universities faced pressure to maintain quality while expanding capacity. Faculty worried about burnout as lecture halls doubled in size. Funding debates raged in Congress. The government's promise of a national education tax drew both praise and criticism. Supporters argued it was a small price to create a more educated population. Opponents warned of runaway costs and questioned whether taxpayers who skipped college themselves should foot the bill for others. Private institutions confronted an identity crisis. Without the leverage of high tuition, they leaned on reputation, alumni networks, and unique programs to stay competitive. Some rebranded themselves as elite research hubs or boutique learning centers with specialized tracks. Others partnered with government agencies to guarantee internships or job placements, offering value that free public education could not match. Meanwhile, Innovation in teaching accelerated. Online platforms expanded to handle the flood of learning. Hybrid classrooms, once experimental, became mainstream. Professors embraced technology to deliver lectures to thousands at once while preserving small discussion groups for deeper engagement. By the end of the first academic year, it was clear that free college had not merely removed a price tag, it had rewritten the rhythm of American life. Families reimagined futures, businesses retooled hiring strategies, and an entire generation approached learning not as a privilege, but as a right. 5 years later, the United States felt like a different country. The first graduating class from the free tuition era was entering the workforce, and their impact rippled through every sector. Hospitals welcomed a surge of newly trained nurses and doctors. Tech companies bristled with innovative software engineers who had once thought coding boot camps were out of reach. Rural towns that had long suffered brain drain now boasted locally educated teachers, scientists, and entrepreneurs who chose to stay and build their community. The national economy reflected this change, with millions carrying $0 in student debt. Consumer spending rose sharply. Young adults bought homes earlier, started families sooner, and invested in small businesses without the weight of monthly loan payments. Credit card debt shrank. Banks, once reliant on lucrative student loan portfolios, pivoted toward offering business and housing loans to an increasingly confident generation. Social attitudes shifted just as dramatically. The idea that higher education was a privilege began to fade, replaced by the belief that lifelong learning was a civic duty. Evening lectures became community events, with retirees sitting beside teenagers to debate literature or explore astrophysics. Trade programs flourished too. Carpentry, welding, and renewable energy training attracted students who wanted hands-on careers without worrying about cost or status. Still, challenges emerged. Some critics argued that a universal college system diluted the value of a bachelor's degree, making advanced credentials like master's programs or specialized certifications the new competitive edge. Others pointed to rising federal spending and asked how long taxpayers could sustain such an ambitious policy, even as new graduates filled the tax base with higher earnings. Universities evolved to meet the moment. Many adopted competency-based learning, allowing students to progress at their own pace. Partnerships between schools and industries deepened. Aerospace companies funded research labs. Hospitals invested in nursing programs. Tech giants sponsored entire departments in exchange for first access to graduate education. Became a dynamic collaboration between public funding and private innovation. The cultural fabric of America grew more vibrant. First-generation college students became second-generation mentors. Families who had never imagined higher education became living proof of its transformative power. At dinner tables and town halls, discussions shifted from "can we afford college" to "what should we learn next?" As the decade closed, the benefits and trade-offs of free college were undeniable. The nation had gained a more skilled workforce and a citizenry eager to keep learning. Taxes were higher, yes, and universities faced constant pressure to balance quality with accessibility, but the collective sense of possibility was unmistakable. Imagine standing on a campus lawn at dusk, listening to a philosophy professor debate ethics with a grandmother and a recent high school graduate. 3 generations learning side by side without a single thought of tuition. That scene captures the heart of a United States where education is no longer a purchase, but a shared public treasure. The question that began with "what if" now lingers as a promise. When opportunity is truly free, how far can a society